Today we're going to be creating a simple application in Android Studio with Kotlin with buttons and text views. So let's first open up Android Studio. Hopefully you've already have it installed, but if not, you can always go to the Google Play developers website and find the installation there. So it'll take a couple seconds for Android Studio to boot up. Makes for some nice tools. Okay, so we're going to start a new Android Studio project. And we're going to create an empty activity. We're going to call this guess the animal, and you'll see why later. And the package name, sometimes you'll see the default to be example, but we're going to put tutorial excuse me, just because that's what it's called. And the language, we chose Kotlin. Obviously this is a Kotlin project, so you want to select that. And for the minimum API level, you can just leave the default, so you click finish, and it will build your project. So this takes a little bit of time. Be patient. So now it's successfully built the project. So here we can see everything's inside app. So with an app we have Java, and even though this is Kotlin, it still calls it Java. And then we'll top folder, and that's main activity. So this is where our code goes, but where the actual layout goes and design is in res. And then we go to layout and activity main.xml, and so this is our layout and design of the app. So let's go to text, and here you can see the raw XML, but if we press preview, you can see what a preview of the app looks like. So we can have a hello world. So this is guess the animal, so let's change this text. Let's put guess the animal. Cool. Okay, so we got this. Let's make the text a little bigger now. It's kind of small, so we do Android text size, and let's do 20 dB. And dB is just a unit that we use in Android Studio. So next we're gonna, let's say now we want to add our button, right? So let's go to design, and here you can add different elements, buttons in common, and you just drag and drop the button onto this display. Okay, should take a couple seconds for the button to appear. Then go back to text. And so now we need to set the anchors for the button so that the button knows where its position should be relative to the display. So just drag this one to the bottom. Drag this. Whoops. Drag this to the top. And then let's drag button down a little bit. To the right. To the left. And then we can reposition the button. And let's rename the text guess. And let's change the color. It's looking a little dull, so we'll do Android and background, and then let's make it the primary color, and so that comes from the color palette defined in this res folder. So let's right now run our app. So right now I already have an emulator installed, but you can always add a new one with Open AVD Manager, and it'll say create virtual device. If you have an Android device, you can also plug it into your computer. Just make sure you have developer options on and USB debugging. So let's press the play button to launch the app and the emulator. And this might take a little while to load. And so now it's just installing the app. And our emulator is also loaded, so we have to wait for it to install. And so it installed successfully. And so the first time this may take more than a minute. And there, so our app appears. Just guess the animal and guess. So let's click the button, and nothing happens, and that's because we haven't programmed the button to do anything yet. So if we go to main activity.kt, which stands for Kotlin. So in order for a button to function, we have to create what we call a listener. So a listener will call code, make code run when the button's clicked. So inside this onCreate function, first we have to identify the button. So we do find view by ID, and then the type of element, so type button, and then it'll make us import button, so we'll just import there. You can see how we imported button with the option enter on the red. Okay, and then we have the ID of the button, so r.id, and then since we named, well, by default named the button, we can just type dot button. Okay. So this will identify the button, and what we want to do is we want to set on click listener. Okay. So what this says is, first we've identified the button we want to set the Onclick Listener for, and the Onclick Listener calls this code sign here whenever the button's clicked. So let's just print out button clicked. Save this, and let's rerun our app with this button up here. And so we can see this print statement in this run tab. So let's just wait for app to refresh. It'll relaunch the app, and we'll press guess. And so we can see and run that whenever we click guess, button clicked. So this is being called. So this isn't too exciting though, because the user can't see this print statement. So let's create a text view that displays text whenever the button's clicked. So we go back to our activity main.xml, go to design, and add a text view below the guess. Take a couple seconds for that up here. Let's go back to text. Do what we did earlier, adding the anchors. And let's create a better name for this text view. Right now it's just called text view. Let's call it like animal name display, since we're gonna make animal names display in this. So let's go to main activity, and so now we need to change the text, right? Whenever the button's clicked, we want it to display an animal name, right? So we use the similar function find view by ID, and the type of this is text view, the component type, and then we do r.id.animalNameDisplay, and so it wants to import text view, which is fine. Do option enter, we'll automatically import that, and then dot text equals, let's say, dog. So you notice here how we don't use getters and setters in Kotlin, and that's something the language is implemented. Instead, you just modify the variable directly, which is kind of nice. So let's rerun the app. So it'll close it and then reopen it. Cool. So it says guess the animal, and then text view, and guess dog. So there are a couple of problems with this. First of all, whenever we click guess, it just shows dog, and that's not too exciting. And also, it defaults to showing text view, and we don't want any text to appear. And it's also kind of small, so let's fix those problems. So let's go back to activity main.xml, and the first thing, the easiest thing, is let's just change the size of the text. So we can do Android text size. Let's make it the same size as guess the animal. Just make it bigger. And let's default the text to nothing, so it won't display until we click the button. And then we want to display, let's just say, a random animal, right? So we're going to create an array of animals, and it's an array of strings. So we'll use the array of function that we can input some strings into. So let's say dog, cat, mouse, bird. Okay, so we got that, and now we want to randomly set the button, the text label to one of these animals. So we'll do animals sub, and then to get a random number in Kotlin, we use the range. So 0 dot 3 dot random, and that will get a random number between the range. So let's try rerunning this, and that random number is a random index for the animals. So okay, guess the animal, guess bird, dog, cat, mouse. Cool. So now this displays random animals. Nice. So this will be the end of our video, If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments, or if you have any errors, leave them in the comments, and please subscribe and like. Thank you.